Erickson, meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Lake Charles, with our 10:30 update for Sunday, August 27th on Tropical Storm Harvey. The overview here: Harvey's still maintaining tropical storm status, and it's moving very slowly towards the south now, heading back towards the coast. Now, that's nothing to be panicking over in one perspective. We're not expecting it to be a big wind event. It's expected to meander near the central Texas coast Monday and Tuesday before heading back north and making a second landfall again west of the Houston-Galveston area. Now, what the problem is with this thing coming back over the Gulf is we're expecting it to intensify the heavy rain and dangerous flood threat for both southeast Texas and parts of southwest Louisiana. So strong winds are not expected to be the main problem with this situation. It's expected there could be an isolated tornado threat, especially today and tomorrow in southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. So here's the satellite view of Harvey. You can see the large bands of orange and reds on there that indicate the colder cloud tops, the more intense areas of where the showers and thunderstorms are occurring. This is a radar picture from about an hour ago showing the L I drew down near where the center of circulation was located, kind of west of Victoria. And you can see the large bands of rain that are predominantly across Jefferson, Orange counties, and Hardin County, extending out in the Gulf of Mexico. And so the problem with that, we've been having to issue flash flood emergencies for this heavy band due to the amount of rainfall that we've been seeing produced by this rain band. Here's the forecast track for Harvey. Maybe difficult to see, but basically it shows it moving very slowly over the next day, back barely off the coast of Texas, and then moving right back on shore the next day. So we're talking about a Monday, Tuesday time frame where it's slightly going offshore. So it's not going to be a big wind story here. It's going to be a big rain story here instead, because of the fact that when it gets back over the Gulf, it kind of re-energizes itself to get more rainfall going across the area. So here's what we've seen so far associated with Harvey. This is the rainfall estimates based on our radar. The dark blues indicate areas of 10 to 15 inches of rain across Hardin County, a good chunk of Jefferson County, western Orange County, and southwestern sections of Jasper County, even a little bit up into southeastern sections of Tower County. Over in Louisiana, the numbers are a little bit lower, between 5 to 10 inches of rain has been seen, mainly in the western sections of Calcasieu and Cameron parishes. Now here's the storyline of what we're pushing out right now. I'm changing graphics here to show a better depiction of the threat. So the pink on this map, which is Hardin, Jefferson, Orange, and then western sections of Calcasieu and Cameron, that pink area has the potential for 10 to 20 inches of rain today and tonight. Some of that's already fallen in southeast Texas, but this is the totals that we're looking at potentially for the 24-hour period from today and tonight. The red zone, that extends up into Tower County, a good chunk of Jasper and Newton counties, parts of Beauregard, and the remainder of Calcasieu Parish and the remainder of Cameron Parish show 5 to 10 inches of rain. And then you can see elsewhere what we're looking at. The northern parts of Jasper and Newton counties, 3 to 5 inches. That extends into Allen Parish, the bulk of Jeff Davis, Acadia Parish, the bulk of Vermilion Parish. And then the 1 to 3 inch rain band is from Vernon Parish across parts of Rapides, Evangeline, St. Landry, Lafayette, St. Martin, and then Iberia, St. Mary as well. Here's what it looks like for tomorrow. There's still another threat for more rain tomorrow. Some big numbers in Jefferson County. They don't have it in the big metropolitan areas right now of Jefferson County. So we'll have to monitor this to see where it ends up falling. But even with this one here, this is the Fannett, Nome, China areas that we're talking about potentially another 10 to 20 inches of rain tomorrow in Jefferson County. The 5 to 10 inch contour extends into Hardin County, Orange County, Calcasieu, and Cameron parishes, and a good chunk of Vermilion Parish as well. You know, this rainfall tomorrow, combined with the rain that we're going to see today, this is just going to be very easy to cause some extreme flooding scenarios across southwest Louisiana and southeast Texas. So just be aware. That's really the messaging that we're trying to get pushed across here with this. Here's the forecast numbers beyond that, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of these values change due to the new forecast track of Harvey moving a little bit offshore. This is the Tuesday forecast numbers, about 2 inches along the I-10 corridor and an inch further north. Wednesday, still 2 to 2.5 inches of rain in southeast Texas, southwest Louisiana, an inch of rain elsewhere. And then the Thursday and Friday time frame, it's just a continuation of this rain because Harvey's still going to be in the area through this entire week. And so we're looking at another possibility of 3 inches. Now, this is a 2-day total, but still, we're talking about another 3 to maybe 4 inches of rain across southeast Texas, parts of southwest Louisiana, and then over to our east, 2 inches in the, give or take, in Alexandria, and not far from that down in Lafayette. So a lot of rain is being forecasted. The potential river flooding scenarios, we're looking at major flooding scenario for Pine Island Bayou at both Sour Lake and the Bevel Oaks communities. Actually, now I'm saying we're looking at up in Coops also. I didn't mark that in the text on here, but it's pink up there as well. So Hardin County is under the gun for a lot of major flooding from the river's perspective that we're looking at here. Moderate flooding expected to occur in Beaumont and the Neches River, Sabine River near Louisville, and then over in Louisiana on the Calcasieu at both the West Fork near St. Houston Jones State Park and Old Town Bay. The tornado threat, we've had a couple of tornado reports yesterday. We had an EF0 tornado, 65-mile wind speed down in Hackberry. We do have a tornado watch out right now for our southeast Texas area and parts of southwest Louisiana until 1 o'clock this afternoon. That will likely need to be reissued, and it may have to go further to the east. The graphic on the right shows the threat for tornadoes today. It's a slight risk, which means it's isolated tornadoes. It's not going to be widespread tornadoes, but the threat will extend across much of our area as far north as the Woodville, Jasper, Newton areas, into most of Beauregard, up through Oberlin and Allen Parish, and then clipping parts of Evangeline Parish, all of Jeff Davis and Acadia Parish, and into Lafayette as well as Vermilion Parish and New Iberia. So that's what we're looking at from the tornado threat. So in summary, Harvey's a tropical storm, but it's moving slowly back towards the coast. It'll meander near the coast Monday and Tuesday before moving back onshore west of the Houston-Galveston area. And due to the system going offshore, we're expecting that to intensify the heavy rain and flood threat for the next couple of days in southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. Winds are not going to be the problem with this. There could be an isolated tornado threat, especially in southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana today. The rain totals that we're talking about, 10 to 20 inches of rain in parts of southeast Texas today and tonight. Some of that's already fallen this morning. 5 to 10 inches of rain is expected in southwest Louisiana, so we're expecting widespread flooding across those areas there. And then another round of heavy rain and flooding is expected on Monday and Monday night. Another 5 to 10 inches of rain is expected across much of the area. That's going to get impacted today. Other areas outside of it, I want to give some numbers. Central Louisiana, 1 to 5 inches of rain today and tomorrow. And south central Louisiana, 2 to 8 inches of rain is what we're looking at. So it's not that there's not going to be flooding in those areas. It's just shouldn't be as widespread. But don't be surprised for us to be issuing flash flood warnings if we get some rain bands moving onshore in those areas as well. So it's a dire situation from the perspective of the flooding going on in southeast Texas right now. Jonathan Brazell is working closely, watching the radar, issuing warnings on it, and he'll be updating us later on this afternoon on what scenarios we got. So we'll have an update at 4:30 this afternoon. Does anyone have any other questions for
The
me?
leader has unmuted your line.
With this storm expecting to get out over the water a little bit, is that going to bring back any new surge concerns?
Okay, I'm going to ask Andy's going to put up the current radar picture here, and I'm going to ask him to go right into the weather part of this.
All right. At least for today, you saw a lot of those heavy rain bands. Many of you obviously have seen a lot of pictures and video coming out of the Houston area with their really catastrophic flooding. And we're starting to see this today is kind of the Beaumont Port Arthur Day. These rain bands here, if you're really caught into one of those rain bands, chances are there's going to be 10 plus inches. This will normally persist for at least, let's say, 3 to 4 hours. So you're talking about 2 to much as 4 to 5 inches of rain per hour on top of that. So it's not going to be too difficult to get 8 to 10 inches with this band here, especially as it's going through southeast Texas. So we're going to miss out on that one. The issue for us is these kind of what I call outer fringe showers and thunderstorms that develop very quickly. And, you may see a very lull, you're driving around, it's dry, and then all of a sudden these heavier bursts of rain will come. That's primarily what's going to happen, we think, for the rest of the day for the local area here. But keep in mind, these bands can kind of shift a little bit here and there. Nonetheless, we are thinking, especially tonight and into tomorrow, and even perhaps even tomorrow night as well, some more these bands will likely be affecting our area. And Roger mentioned 5 to 10 inches for both the rest of through tomorrow morning and into Tuesday morning. That's 10 to 20 inches. So we're thinking some very significant, potentially catastrophic flooding across southwest Louisiana. One thing to note too is, there was a question here before we closed off the webinar about, okay, this system's getting back into the Gulf. As Roger mentioned, the winds are not going to be, we're not thinking the winds are going to be picking up as strong. And so we're not really thinking of this being a, quote, surge issue per se. We're focusing more on the heavy rain and catastrophic flooding with this. So are there any questions? I'm just going to say one last thing too. So Monday and Tuesday are going to be really, we think, very relatively wet days with lots of flooding. As far as what happens later in the week, everyone's want to know, when's all this stuff going to end? We may have to, this is probably going to be may last another day or two beyond that as well. We're just going to have to see how these bands evolve, what happens with the Harvey remnants. It's going to slowly weaken, but where is it going to set up? Where is it going to set up any additional rain bands? We'll be focusing on that in the coming days.
Yeah, so just to be clear, Andy, you're saying that our 2-day total could very well be 20 inches.
Correct.
So, right, and the way the wind's been blowing, even though the storm surge has gone down a little bit, all of the drainages are full right now. So it's like Andy said, a potentially dangerous situation. And then what about, I know Roger always tells us that those numbers you're given are the average over the whole area. How about an isolated event?
Well, isolated, normally as we go through a lot of these heavy rain events, there's just 1 or 2 outlier areas that kind of can exceed that, 20, 30, or 25 to 30 inches, maybe possibly in excess of that is certainly possible. I mean, I know Houston could be looking at that. Houston area, maybe points a little further north, could be looking at that as well. One last thing, and we mentioned, I didn't really talk a whole lot about it because we're focused on the heavy rain. A lot of times these little bands here will produce little mini, what we call spin-up tornadoes. And so we're issuing quite a few tornado warnings across southeast Texas. It's not going to take a whole lot, even for these outer rain bands, to kind of show a little more rotation and spin up. We had, of course, that EF0 tornado that hit Hackberry here yesterday afternoon. So that's another thing we're going to have to watch out for. These rain bands, as they come through, will produce very strong gusty winds as well. And potentially when, they do have little spin-up tornadoes, as I mentioned yesterday, they're not the type that are going to be long-tracked. They'll do more spotty, isolated damage. The winds with the one in Hackberry were estimated only around 65 miles per hour.
So essentially, outside of the wind, sustained wind situation, we're essentially in a tropical storm right now. Is that it?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay. And I just wanted Andy to clarify that because yesterday I talked to a lot of people that came, and I think they were thinking that this was over, and this is not over. Probably until at least Wednesday. So does anyone have any other weather questions? Because I have a couple of people that want to make some comments. The sheriff would like to talk about the situation on the roads and driving and stuff. So Sheriff Mancuso.
I just don't want people to take and let their guard down just yet. I think it's important. We rely on our partners at the National Weather Service, and they've done a very good job. And all we can do is look at the information that we're given. I'm a little concerned about west side of the river. They seem to be getting the brunt of it the last day or so. We have done an assessment this morning. Everything's passable at this time. We'll do another assessment at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We'll send deputies out throughout the area. We just can't take anything. We cannot, once these bans come, it can be catastrophic very quickly. So a couple things to our public. They've done a great job. It's really, the road traffic right now is very minimal, which helps us because it helps us to do our assessments, do our job. We're not working a lot of wrecks and dealing with those types of issues. So I want to thank the public right now. They have done a tremendous job. They're staying indoors. It seems they've gone to grocery stores and wiped them out and got plenty of groceries. But I'm a little concerned about the next probably 36 hours is what I'm concerned about. It's not going to take much to make this change from bad. Right now it's just kind of bad weather, but it can go to worse really, really quick. And when that happens, that's going to tax us and really make our resources come out, put our deputies in danger. So, if you don't have to get out, I'm going to ask you not to get out. Right now we've not closed anything. We're going to look at. I know the superintendent and I have talked, and whatever decision he makes, I'm 100% in agreement with. I think we have to err on the side of caution, and that's hard to do when we start closing things down. It worries us and concerns us, but we do it only with the public's best interest at heart. That's it. That's our only concern. And we have to look at the worst case scenario. And although we've dodged it so far, I don't know how long our luck's going to continue. At some point, it's just going to take a band to come through here and hover over us, and it's going to throw us into a whole different category. So I'm going to say again, I don't want the public to let their guard down. Y'all have done a great job all week explaining this to us, and it took a little longer, but it's coming back like you said it was going to come back. And the closer it meanders to us, the worse it's going to be for us. So we're going to hope for the best, but we're going to prepare for the worst. And I'm going to caution people again to monitor it closely for the next 36, 48 hours. I think we're going to deal with this all week next week. Is that accurate?
At least the next 2-3 days, we think.
Right. So we're gonna be here for you. We're gonna stay and closely monitor our roadways. I want especially Sulphur, west of that area, to be very, very cautious because I think they could get the worst of these bans, but that doesn't exclude us either. But monitor it closely and be very cautious. We're going to be very cautious. So if you don't have to be and you can stay put, stay put. If you need anything, continue to call our office, call your local police departments. OEP's got numbers that you can call. So I just don't want people to let their guard down just yet. I think we need to be cautious and keep our fingers crossed. But I don't know that we can keep dodging this as it keeps moving, and it's very unpredictable. Weather is just very unpredictable. So that's it, Dick. Unless somebody has a question for us or.
Yeah, Tony. Well, yeah, Tony, I have a question. With that, we know we got concerns with North Sulphur and Anthony Ferry Road, and also in Moss Bluff as kind of being areas of concern. But also, are we looking at any school closures so far yet?
I know that he's going to address that here in a minute. We've talked, and he knows how I feel about it, and I support whatever decision he makes. You don't ever want to, because you can't make those back up. It's very difficult, but I think you're exactly right. I think we have to, these roads, the conditions over the last couple of days have not given us any reprieve. In other words, the ground's just saturated. Our bayous, our marine division's here with me, the bayous, our rivers, they really can't take anymore. We need dry weather to solve the problem for us. And we're just not going to get that. We are not going to get that all week long. So we're going to have to deal with this. And although there's nothing catastrophic at this time, it's not going to take much to throw us into that. You look at what's happening with our neighbors in Houston, and they're going to have to deal with that for the next day or two also. I don't know that it would get that bad for us, but it's not going to take much to have pockets of that flooding. The Moss Bluff area, the North Sulphur, the Vinton area, Lower Corliss, the places that are always prone to flooding. If we get one of these sales, as I see it and as they explain to me, that could cause that. And that's where we get tasked with coming in and having to do quick rescues and things like that, and it makes it very dangerous, so. I'm gonna go, you know, I'm gonna say optimistically, we would, or cautiously, or whatever, however you want to say it, we would have to have some really dry weather come in for us to open it back up. I don't see it, and I know we got a holiday weekend coming up. I really don't see that opening up for this holiday weekend unless conditions just really, really change. And I don't see that happening.
They're predicting a moderate flood right now. That's without all of this.
That's right.
Rainfall.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So they've switched it to
Yeah.
major now.
So all we can do is be optimistic and hope that we don't get this, but we can't not plan for it. We're going to have to, as far as our stance, as far as the law enforcement stance, we're going to assume that these bands are going to hit us at some point tonight or tomorrow, and we're going to be ready for it. And that's where I ask the public to just keep monitoring. So far, I'm telling you, if you go out on the streets right now, there's not a lot of movement, not a lot of traffic. That helps us. That's what helps us to be able to not deal with all the other issues that come along with the flooding. And so I thank the public for that, and just continue to stay on top of it. You've done a great job, and we're going to be there for you. We're prepared. We're ready. The more you do, the more you stay off the roads, the more you stay put, the better it is for us. The easier it is for us to maneuver and get. I mean, we've got everything covered from helicopters to boats to every aspect to search and rescue. We're ready. We just hope it doesn't come to that. But if it does, it's not going to take much for it to become that. And all we can do is hope. That's really where we're at right now. We cannot say with 100% certainty that it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. But I know that we can't take any based on the saturation that we've got. So, anybody else?
I just want to say one more thing real quick. The trend for these rain bands have been to actually strengthen during the night. So I think Sheriff really made some good points about that, especially the nighttime flooding issue. You know, it's going to be extremely bad enough during the day, but you know, our concerns obviously are at nighttime when you really cannot really see if you're driving coming up on the water that quickly. So I just want to mention that a lot of these bands are going to probably start intensifying overnight. Normally you think during the day, but on tropical systems, it's more likely they're going to pick up during the night.
Yeah, one other clarification. Stand by, Andy. I got a clarification. Craig, you mentioned several spots, Moss Bluff, maybe North Sulphur. What we've had at least in the past 20 years or so, we've had areas like that. Moss Bluff gets a 10-inch rain. North Claiborne gets a 10-inch rain. What we have not had, and I want Andy to comment on this, when he says 5 to 10 inches, they're talking about an average over the whole parish. That includes City of Lake Charles and everywhere else. So we're not talking about a thunderstorm with a heavy rain event. What we're talking about is a flood 5 to 10 inches over the whole parish. With some areas, that area might get 20 inches instead of 10 in addition to this 10 inches. So is that a fair assessment?
It is, and you know, we didn't really hit it too hard here, and I think one of the rain reasons is, you know, sometimes we're a little reluctant to go extreme type flooding. We think once we mention the 10 to 20, you think we kind of sort of think it's bad enough, but really, to be honest, you're right. It does. We do get those. We are going to probably see locally higher amounts. Getting 30 plus inches in the Houston area is probably reasonable, but there might, you know, they're now talking 40, maybe even greater than that. So yeah, when we talk about that, sometimes you can think of as much as half as much, so a 10 to 20, you know, maybe 10 more on top of that. It's 5 to 10 more on top of that is possible in just a few areas.
I know we keep talking about Moss Bluff and West Side Sulphur and over there, but the chances of that happening at 20 inches right over the city of Lake Charles is still a high probability.
There's a probability. If you're asking me that whether or not, we can't really say that, but the situation is set up for that to potentially occur. Yes.
I talked about these areas, but I just don't want, what we don't want is anybody to let their guard down. It's still,
Right.
It's going to be problematic for us parish-wide. We talk about those areas because they're prone to flooding already.
Right.
Not just street flooding, we're talking about house flooding.
No, that's
You're
correct.
gonna have street flooding. Anytime one of these cells come through, we're gonna have localized street flooding. It just doesn't necessarily get into houses.
And that was my point, Sheriff. The areas that flood already are gonna be worse, but everybody else may get some flooding as well. That was really our
I
point.
think people need to be on guard for the next 36 to 48 hours, 100%. No matter where they live in the parish. So.
Okay, I'd like for Superintendent Carl Brookhouse to come up and kind of give us a summary of what they know right now about the school systems.
I have to admit, yesterday morning in the briefing, sitting here seeing even 2 inches per day, I felt like we could handle that. Sitting here this morning, in fact, we just posted online a few minutes ago, actually an hour ago, that we'd let everybody know after 4:30 briefing today. But hearing what we're hearing here, I mean, if we're encouraging motorists to not be on the road, we certainly can't have buses out on the road and people taking their children to school. It's just not a reasonable thing to expect. But what we do understand, and the reason we don't take this lightly, is when we send 33,000 students home, there are certainly domino and ripple effects on child care, on businesses, on everything that goes on in this parish. So, I mean, we try to hope for the best and take it very, very seriously. But as of right now, it looks like we will be down tomorrow. We'll post that on all of our social media sites, our website, with our media relations folks. So we'll get that done for tomorrow. But what we will say is we'll take it a day at a time. By 5 o'clock every day, starting tomorrow, we will let everybody know what will come for the following day. So for tomorrow, we will be down here in Calcasieu Parish. Schools will be closed based on what we just saw here this morning. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. So we'll do that, and then 5 o'clock every day thereafter. By that time, we will let everybody know what to expect for the following day.
Thank you, Mr. Brookhouse. Does anyone, hold on, Carl. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Brookhouse regarding this? And it's an example of worst-case scenario planning. I think everyone needs to be, at least in the next few days, be in that mode. There may be some bright spots, but let's not concentrate on that. Let's, when we're talking about schools, we're talking about safety of children. We're not going to take any chances there. So, a couple of things on operations. I've had some people call me saying, "Hey, does Texas need any help?" Well, I checked around. There's no request for help so far. Wildlife and Fisheries has sent 3 10-man boat teams over to the Houston area, I think, Jesse. Not sure where they were going. And I know first responders always want to help, but frankly, we're probably going to need you here tomorrow at home. So we'll send out an email later about that. Also, the other thing is Texas is about 20 times the size of Louisiana. They got a few more resources than we do. So I think that's it, other than, make your preparations based on this forecast you saw today. And frankly, although it seemed otherwise for the last couple of days, this is exactly what, and I think the sheriff alluded to this, this is exactly what Weather Service has been telling us what the scenario was going to be. It's just we were hoping it wasn't going to be that bad. So anyone have any other search and rescue folks meet with Rob immediately after this meeting. Got a couple elected officials here. Mr. Guidry, you have any comments?
Just wanted to kind of reiterate what Tony Sheriff Mancuso said. I was actually watching this morning the Weather Channel, and I was watching Harrison County over in Houston. Guys, let me tell you something. The biggest problem they're having right now is that there's people that's actually getting on the road that shouldn't be on the road, which are limiting their resources to go out and help those that are in need. And that's just what I want to say here locally here in Calcasieu. If you don't have to be on the road for any other reason, if it's an emergency, we understand that 911 is available, and we're always going to take your call. But if you're in a situation that's not life-threatening, that helps Mr. Mancuso and his team be able to place their resources elsewhere that are people that are extremely in need of our help. So just be mindful. If you don't have to be on the roadways, I know that school's going to be closed tomorrow. And I know there's going to be a lot of people that's probably going to be moving around because of that, because of trying to find daycare and those type things for their kids. But just watching nationally as to how it's affecting Houston and Harrison County, their resources are being depleted because there are people that are calling in that are not having life-threatening emergencies. And that's what can put pressure on Tony Mancuso's team. And that's just what I want you to know, because we need those resources for people that are going to be in need. And the next couple of days, we may have to put those people in place. So that's just what I want to urge you to do. If you don't have to be on the roadways, by all means, please stay in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. President of Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, you were supposed to introduce yourself. Mayor Duncan, you have any comments? Stand by, if you would, face the camera.
Chris Duncan, Mayor of the City of Sulphur. I agree with Tony and Kevin and Superintendent of the schools. I assume that we'll have a policy committee meeting maybe today, and we'll evaluate what we're all going to do as cities, because in Calcasieu Parish, we all unite and come to conclusions together in that. But I strongly suggest, even coming over here, there's a vehicle in the median, and that you got to look for the pockets of water when you're driving. Don't use excessive speeds, and there again, stay off the roads if you can.
Thank you, Mayor Duncan. We have John Cardone here representing Mayor Hunter today. John, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Dick. John Cardone, City Administrator, and I too agree, and I'll say we support the superintendent's position in closing the schools. And I think it's important for us, for the governmental agencies, to kind of regroup after this meeting and try to make a decision on a path forward and what we're going to do as agencies, whether we're going to consider closing or not. So that decision will be made a little bit later this afternoon, and we'll be posting a media advisory out accordingly. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, and anyone else have it? Yes, ma'am.
Kimberly Gazzolo, I'm superintendent of Catholic schools.
Yes.
We obviously will be closing, but we'll also be closing our school in Jennings. And then we'll follow the lead as well. We'll be attending tomorrow, and then we'll make a decision after 5 for Tuesday.
Okay, so the Catholic schools in Calcasieu Parish plus your school in Jennings will be closed
Yes,
tomorrow? Thank you. Anyone else have any announcements or questions while we're all here? Okay, well, things are obviously a little more serious today. I appreciate everyone coming, and hopefully you can convey what you've heard here today out to your network that you deal with. So if you would get that word out for us. We'll have another briefing here at 4:30 this afternoon. And if we could have the government officials meet briefly after this meeting.